Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're setting our sights on an absolute biological masterpiece, something that keeps you alive every single second of every single day, the human respiratory pathway. I am so pumped to guide you through this because we're going to break down exactly how a single breath of air travels from the outside world all the way deep into your lungs. We're keeping it structured, highly visual, and entirely fascinating. Let's get right into it. Look, here is my promise to you today. Stop memorizing and start visualizing the most important medical concepts in your Class 11 biology syllabus. From the microscopic hairs in your nasal cavity acting as a primary filter to the massive dynamic surface area of your alveoli, we are completely mastering the respiratory system today. This is your ultimate guide to truly understanding the anatomy and scoring full marks on your board exams. Here's our blueprint for the explainer. 1. Entering the nasal cavity. 2. Larynx and trachea. 3. Branching bronchi. 4. Alveoli and gas exchange. 5. Airway dimensions. And 6. The ultimate study checklist. Part 1. Entering the nasal cavity, the body's filter. Think about it. Your nose is the only externally visible part of the respiratory system. It's made up of bones, cartilage, and fibrofatty tissues. But it's what's inside that really matters. Right inside those nostrils, you have hairs that act as your absolute first line of defense. They're a physical barrier against harmful pathogens and solid particulate matter just floating around in the air. Basically, every time you inhale, those hairs are catching the debris you definitely don't want ending up in your lungs. I really love this analogy. Think of the nose as your body's natural HVAC system: heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Behind those hairs, the nasal cavities are lined with mucous membranes and tiny hair-like structures called cilia. This membrane secretes a sticky mucus that traps dust and microorganisms, while the cilia constantly sweep those trapped invaders toward the pharynx to get rid of them. But honestly, the most amazing part? Underneath that mucous membrane is a rich network of blood capillaries acting like a radiator. They literally warm the incoming air to exactly 30 degrees Celsius, completely regardless of how freezing it might be outside. Okay, so keeping our chronological map in mind, we've just brought the air through the nose, it's been filtered, moistened, and warmed. Now it moves down to the pharynx, which is a cone-shaped passageway leading from the oral and nasal cavities downwards. Now, the pharynx is actually a shared corridor. It's part of both the digestive and respiratory systems, which is a brilliant piece of anatomy, right? It's exactly what allows us to breathe through our mouths when our noses are stuffed up from a cold. From the pharynx, the air prepares to descend into the lower respiratory system. Moving on to part 2, larynx and the trachea, the main pipelines. Sitting right below the pharynx, we hit the larynx. And wow, this is an incredibly complex little organ. It serves a dual function. Yes, it's an air canal directing oxygen down to your lungs, but it's also your voice box. It's built from an external skeleton of cartilage plates, fastened together by membranes and muscle fibers so it doesn't collapse. Inside, you have 2 fibrous bands called vocal cords, which are basically mucous membranes stretched horizontally. When air rushes past them, they vibrate, and boom, you produce sound. Directly below the larynx is the trachea, or the windpipe, and this pipeline is serious business. We're talking about a tube roughly 10 to 12 centimeters long and 2 centimeters wide. But it's not just some floppy hose. The wall is stiffened by 16 to 20 characteristic horseshoe-shaped, incomplete cartilaginous rings. Now you might be wondering, why incomplete? Well, they actually open towards the back to allow the esophagus behind it to expand when you swallow a big bite of food. But the rigid front ensures your airway never, ever collapses. And just like the nasal cavity, it's lined with a ciliated mucous membrane to keep moistening, warming, and filtering the air. Section 3. Branching bronchi and bronchioles. As we travel further down, the trachea divides into 2 stem bronchi, one heading to the left lung and one to the right lung. Structurally, these guys closely resemble the trachea, possessing small cartilaginous plates to support their walls. But there's a really fascinating anatomical quirk here. The right bronchus actually has a larger diameter and is noticeably shorter than the left bronchus. These primary bronchi then divide and redivide, forming what looks like an intricate, upside-down tree network deep inside your chest cavity. Now, as these tubes get smaller and smaller, a major anatomical shift happens. We transition from bronchi to bronchioles. While bronchi have those rigid cartilaginous plates to keep them propped open, the bronchioles, which are tiny, roughly 1 millimeter or less in diameter, have absolutely no cartilage. Instead, their walls are made of a layer of smooth muscle. This is a total game changer. That smooth muscle allows the bronchioles to literally change their diameter. They can constrict or dilate to actively control and distribute airflow, sending oxygen exactly where your lungs need it most.
All right, Section 4, Alveoli and Gas Exchange, the final destination.
Just look at that number, 700 million. The terminal bronchioles finally open up into small collections of air sacs known as alveoli. There are over 700 million alveoli packed into your two lungs. To put that into perspective, if you were to flatten out the walls of all these microscopic sacs, they would cover a surface area of 70 to 90 square meters. That is roughly the size of half a tennis court, just folded up inside your chest. They act like microscopic, highly vascularized bubble wrap, providing a massive surface area for the rapid exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. Now, for this gas exchange to actually work, the respiratory surface has to be incredibly thin. And it is. The wall of each alveolus is only 0.1 micrometers thick, lined with a moist layer. But that moisture creates a physical problem, surface tension. It makes these tiny balloon-like sacs want to collapse in on themselves. So what's the body's solution? Surfactant. Special cells in the alveolus wall secrete this detergent-like chemical. It radically lowers the surface tension, making it so much easier for you to breathe in and inflate your lungs. And as an awesome bonus, this surfactant also kills bacteria that somehow managed to make it this deep into your respiratory tract. Section 5. Airway Dimensions and Functions Data Dive. So let's take a moment to notice how perfectly form matches function across these structures. Look at the trachea first. At 10 to 12 centimeters long and a robust 2 centimeters wide, it serves as the durable main passage. It's armored with cartilage to stay open while warming and filtering air. Then compare that to the bronchioles. Dropping way down to 1 millimeter or less in diameter and ditching the cartilage entirely for smooth muscle. Their specific function shifts to actively controlling where that air goes. Finally, the alveoli. With a phenomenally thin 0.1 micrometer wall stretched over a 70 to 90 square meter area, their entire physical existence is optimized for just one job: the rapid diffusion and exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. And finally, Section 6, the ultimate study checklist. Okay, let's do a rapid-fire review to lock this in and test your visualization. The air enters the nasal cavity where hairs, mucus, and capillaries filter, warm, and moisten it. It drops through the pharynx, our shared cone-shaped passageway. It passes through the larynx, your dual-functioning voice box. Then it travels down the trachea, the ultimate cartilage-ringed pipeline. The airway then splits into the right and left bronchi, which branch further into the smooth-muscled bronchioles, acting as dynamic air distributors. And finally, the air hits the alveoli, those microscopic, surfactant-coated sacs where gas exchange actually physically occurs across a 0.1 micrometer barrier. And there you go, you've completely mastered the respiratory pathway. But before we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. We have successfully traced a breath of life-giving oxygen all the way in. But how exactly does your blood manage to carry the toxic waste product, carbon dioxide, back out through this exact same system? I mean, what are the specific chemical mechanisms in your blood that even allow that reverse journey to happen? We are going to dive into the transport of respiratory gases very soon. So keep visualizing, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.